Ben Simmons was already ruled out for the rest of the season, and today we found out he's undergone his second back surgery in just 2 years, leaving many people wondering if it's even possible for Ben Simmons to ever return to what he used to be as a player. Welcome back, everybody. I'm Dr. Brian Sutterer, and my goal in this channel is to help teach you more about the medical side of the sports world. This was the unfortunate news today that Ben Simmons has undergone specifically microscopic partial discectomy to alleviate the nerve impingement in his lower back. His second surgery since joining the Nets in 2022. Of course, just about a few days or so after we found out he was already out for the season because of this nerve impingement. I want to start off with our anatomy tool to just get a sense of the different anatomic portions and kind of areas that we're talking about here as we go through some of these terms to first discuss what the injury was, what the surgery is, and then finally we'll end on some data outcomes and just my thoughts on whether or not we should basically consider Ben Simmons' career to be over based on what we knew it to be. So looking at our anatomy tool here, I've shown primarily the lumbar spine because of course it's his back. The same phenomenon that we're talking about here with pinched nerves, nerve impingement, can happen anywhere from the cervical spine up in the neck down through the thoracic spine, much less common, but then in this case in the lumbosacral spine. So here I've got highlighted one of the lumbar vertebrae. The vertebrae are the bones in the spine. And between the vertebrae are the intervertebral discs. Those discs act a little bit like cushions between the bones of the spine. As we age, when we develop arthritis, degenerative changes in our back, one of the things that can happen is those discs can start to shrink. They get less water content. You get narrowing where those discs can narrow, similar to how you can develop arthritis in other portions of these joints. If we zoom in here, some other things to know about. The facet joints are the little joints, the little articulation right here between one vertebrae above and below. So you can have pathology, you can have arthritis in these little facet joints located on both sides. So here on the left, that's one of the facet joints. On the right, that's the other facet joint. This is the spinous process. So the bump that we see in the back is the spinous process in the posterior portion. This is going to be the vertebral body here in the front. And then of course the spinal cord, the spinal column, is the central part of this. The nerves leave the spinal column and travel out of these holes called the neuroforamen. So nerve foramen, nerve opening, nerves leave these holes to exit out to go out to our arms, to our legs to help control our movement. A disc herniation occurs when there's been a herniation or a bulge in one of these discs, causing it to irritate or entrap the nerve as it's leaving the spine. This can cause not only focal back pain, but it can also cause classically pain that radiates in the distribution of those nerves. This map here is showing something we call the dermatomes. The dermatomes are the sensory distributions of the various nerve root levels. So specifically in the leg, you have L3, 4, 5, S1, and all of those nerve distributions wrap around the side of the hip and then travel, most of them down to the lower leg. If you remember when a lot of this first happened with Simmons, they were confused about how it was initially thought to be some hip pain. Well, if you have something like an L4 and L5 disc herniation causing a nerve impingement called a nerve radiculopathy, that can present with hip pain because of the referral pattern of the pain from where that nerve is getting pinched. Now that we've discussed the basic anatomy, I want to take a second here to give a shout out to the sponsor of today's video, a company that's just as excited about learning as I am. If you're here watching my videos, then you're the type of person who loves to learn. And that's why I'm really excited to tell you about the sponsor of today's video, Brilliant. Brilliant is where you learn by doing, with thousands of lessons in math, data analysis, programming, and AI. Their unique bite-sized and interactive approach to learning makes it not only really fun, but more importantly, extremely effective. They start from the ground up with their first principles approach that really lets you get the foundation of different topics before you progress into more advanced concepts. The guided bite-sized lessons really make it easy to stay on track of things and build a nice habit of daily learning in a fun, almost game-like progression style of tracking. Right now, you can try everything Brilliant has to offer for free for 30 days. Just visit brilliant.org/BrianMD or click the link in the description below. Plus, they're also going to give you 20% off an annual premium subscription. Some of their latest content that I really enjoy centers around this new and evolving ever-present world of AI with lessons on things like large language models and data programming. You don't have to be confused when you see all this stuff about AI on the internet. You can have fun learning about it for yourself with Brilliant. I love that Brilliant shares my same passion for making learning not only as effective as possible, but also really fun. So take advantage of this great offer for a free 30 days and 20% off an annual subscription by heading to brilliant.org/BrianMD today. Thank you again to Brilliant for sponsoring today's video, and let's get back to our learning. This next biodigital graphic does a really nice job of illustrating what happens with a disc herniation causing nerve impingement. So if we break through a cross-section of the disc, of the vertebral column, of course, here we have one of the vertebral bodies. This is going to be specifically the fourth lumbar vertebrae. As we look to rotate through the top, we see the back halves of these little facet joints, that spinous process, and then the spinal canal is right through here centrally where that spinal cord has run down. Through the disc on the outer part is called the annulus fibrosus. The inner part is the nucleus pulposus. Nice big fancy words. Whenever the disc herniates or the disc bulges, there's some technical detail differences between a disc protrusion, a disc bulge. We won't worry about that for now, but that disc structure can cause some irritation and inflammation on this exiting nerve root. So this right here is the nerve root that's exiting out that foramen that we talked about, but that disc material bulges out and can irritate and push on this nerve. You cause this inflammatory cascade that can cause that nerve to be painful and then radiate pain down into the leg, pain locally in the back from that disc bulge and that nerve herniation. So this is the classic example of sort of a textbook disc herniation causing nerve impingement. But these can happen in different areas. There's different patterns to them, but just understand this idea of that disc material bulges out, then pinches on that nerve. That nerve gets irritated from an inflammatory response, causing pain, typically in the distribution of that nerve as well as in the back. So now when we talk about the surgery and what they did to treat this, let's break down some of these words. Microscopic. They do it through a tiny little incision port where they can look in. They're not taking a big open incision on the spine. It's a minimally invasive spine surgery, which is good. Partial discectomy. So ectomy means removal. Just when we talk about a meniscectomy, it's a partial removal of the meniscus. Discectomy is a partial removal of the disc. So a partial discectomy, what they do, if we go back to this anatomy model, is they make a little tiny incision and they go in with the camera and they remove the disc material that is pushing on and irritating the nerve. So they don't take out the entire disc, they clip out the part that they think is pushing on the nerve and causing the pain. So you're trying to salvage as much of the disc as you can, similar to a meniscus surgery, but remove just enough so that you limit that irritation on the nerve. Now, of course, this sounds scary, right? It's back surgery. And anytime we're talking about back surgery, whether you're an athlete or it's your grandma, it's a big deal. I will say, though, there's levels to back surgery. This is not a fusion. This is not something that's as significant as a vertebral fusion or a disc replacement or something like that. Yes, it's back surgery, but I wouldn't necessarily think of it as something that's changing or really modifying the structural integrity of his back, so to speak. If this were back fusion, this would be a whole other discussion. There'd probably even be discussions with the team medical staff on appropriateness to return to play. So yes, this is a back surgery, but it's not as aggressive, as invasive as you might think of when you just hear the term back surgery. But that still means that this is going to be really difficult to come back from and come back from well. Similar to the meniscus, the more of that disc you have to take, you lose that disc's ability to do its job in the spine. That disc is designed in a way to help load the pressure through the back. It has a purpose. And when you cut some of that disc out, you make it harder for that disc to do its job. Now, we don't know the progression of when that might manifest with other symptoms, but the more of these microdiscectomies, the more of these surgeries you have to do, the more you take that disc, the more you can cause this snowball effect down the road with other issues in the spine. What we don't know in Simmons' case is if this is the same disc, the same area that he injured before. Hopefully not. I guess that's kind of catch-22. On one sense, if it's the same area, then there's even more disc material that's been taken. If it's a different area, that tells you that there's some biomechanic pattern, some issue more at a foundational level in his back that's causing these issues to occur at multiple levels, which might be just as concerning long-term. If we look at some data on just outcomes after these lumbar disc herniations in the NBA, not every athlete returns to play. I think we assume, especially with a high-level athlete, that they're going to get back to play no matter what. But this study specifically looked at a total of 61 NBA players who had disc herniations, and about half underwent surgery, discectomy, and the other half were managed conservatively. Return to play rates weren't that different between non-operative and operative, but look at the return to play percentages. Just over 3/4 of these patients, regardless of surgery or not, even returned to play. And so even if the surgery goes well, there's no guarantee that even just a single back surgery you're going to return to play. And if you do return to play, that it's going to be at the same level that you had before. So there is literature out there, there is precedent out there that the more of these back surgeries you have, even just a single back surgery, you run the chance that you might not return to play regardless of your previous history. But that's the case with all sports injuries, right? Even ACL tears don't have a 100% return to play rate. With Simmons, I think you have to look more at the history. You have to look more at the progression of how things have been going in order to get a sense of what might be ahead, and then adjust your expectations. We've seen guys do this. We've seen Michael Porter Jr. with the Nuggets undergo back surgeries, but still come back to be successful and so far have a good NBA career, knock on wood. So it doesn't mean that this is like a death blow to his career, but we've seen this pattern happen a couple of years now in just a 3-year, 2-year span, that it makes you more concerned about isn't going to continue to happen. Are there going to continue to be other back issues? Is there going to be continued pain? What's the recovery going to be? And eventually you have to kind of read the writing on the wall, so to speak, of what's taken place before. Now, that doesn't mean that you should just totally throw someone's career out the window, but I think it does mean you have to have a different perspective and a different expectation. I don't think it's fair to expect somebody who's undergone 2 back surgeries and had these very real, very painful, challenging injuries to get back to the level that they were. I think you have to set a different expectation and a different standard, adjusting for and accounting for what a player has went through. By no means does this mean that Ben Simmons is finished, but it might mean that Ben Simmons is going to be different in terms of ever getting back to the Ben Simmons that we thought we all knew and saw when he first joined the NBA. And that's okay. That's part of sports. That's part of going through these injuries. What's important for fans is to have that understanding and make that adjustment. Realize, no, his career's probably not over, but we have to look at it in a different perspective, knowing that he's now gone through a second back surgery, and hope for the best. At this case, it's more for me about, can you have a good life? Are you going to be comfortable on a daily basis, just walking and doing normal active things? And getting back to basketball is a bonus. I think he'll still probably come back, but it's going to be a question of how effective is he, and does something like this continue to happen again? I think we have to reframe what we think about Ben Simmons' career going forward because of these injuries, but definitely cannot just say that he's completely finished. That's it for the video, everybody. Hopefully this was interesting. Let me know, as always, any questions or comments down below. And until next time, we'll see you later.